What's going on, guys? This is Mikeinoid, and today we'll be talking about the Nintendo Switch Lite that has now been on the market for 4 years. The Nintendo Switch has sold about 129 million units, making it Nintendo's best-selling home console after passing the Wii's 101 million number. The Switch's success may come as a surprise to some. Nintendo released this console after a devastating disaster known as the Wii U, and the Switch itself is not nearly as powerful compared to its competitors. But at the end of the day, Nintendo released a system that lets you play their impressive lineup of first-party games on the TV and on the go while being at a reasonable price. Just like every single piece of successful Nintendo hardware, there are different versions of the Switch you can acquire. The current Switch out on the market is an upgraded version that has better battery life than Switch systems before fall of 2019. And then of course you have the OLED model that has the OLED screen, double the storage, a usable kickstand, improved sound quality, and a newer version of the dock that has an Ethernet port. And finally, you got the baby Switch. The Nintendo Switch Lite officially announced on July 10th of 2019, after being heavily rumored that a Switch Mini was on the way. It was also rumored that a Switch Pro is on the way, which could have been the OLED model, or perhaps a Switch 2 that is still being rumored to this day. This isn't the first time that Nintendo has used the term Lite. In 2016, the DS Lite hit store shelves as a remodel for the original DS system. While the DS Lite was an overall improvement over the original DS, the Switch Lite serves as more of an alternative option for consumers. The Switch Lite is a dedicated handheld system, so you're unable to connect it to the TV like a regular Switch. Even third-party docking options are unable to connect a Switch Lite to the TV. The system just doesn't have that input technology a regular Switch or OLED model has. The Switch Lite is also a bit smaller in both size and weight, with the controls built into the system instead of using Joy-Cons. All the buttons and control sticks are present, except the directional buttons are replaced with a traditional D-pad. The directional buttons are present on the left Joy-Con so that you can have regular buttons if you were to use it on its side. I personally never had a problem with this idea, but it's a lot better to have a actual D-pad, especially for classic games that are available through Switch Online. The IR motion camera and HD rumble are both removed from the unit, so if you want to play games like Ring Fit Adventure or Switch Sports, you'll need to connect a pair of Joy-Cons. It's also interesting to note that the Switch Lite did have better battery life than those first Switch models, but paired against the revision model and the OLED, the Lite has an hour or two less battery life. With the amount of features removed, the Switch Lite comes to about $200 US, which makes it $100 less than a regular Switch and $150 less than an OLED model. Now, why did Nintendo even bother to make this system? Well, Nintendo actually wanted more than one Switch system in every household, since they believed that one would not be enough. Well, they got me there. Now, buying another Switch for $300 isn't as justifiable as buying a slightly less pricey Switch that can be bought for those who want to leave their Switch at home and take a dedicated handheld on the go, or for kids to have something to do during a long car ride. The Nintendo 3DS was also still being supported at the time, so the introduction of the Switch Lite was probably meant to finally replace the 3DS as a new dedicated handheld device. But that's just my personal speculation. There are a total of 9 Switch Lite systems at the moment. You have the 3 launch colors that were released on September 20th of 2019 alongside the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake. You got the yellow color. This one is personally my least favorite out of the launch colors. Not that it looks bad, I just prefer the other colors more. If I wanted to take something this yellow with me outside, I would have just grabbed a banana. The gray color is the safest choice of color. Not too fun to look at, but you know, it still does the job. And finally, you have the turquoise color, which is definitely my favorite and the color I chose on day one. It reminds me of the aqua blue 3DS, which was my first 3DS system, so choosing this color was a no-brainer for me. The next standard color that was released was coral on April 3rd of 2020 here in North America, but was released early in Japan on March 20th, which was the same day Animal Crossing New Horizons launched. It's a good looking pink. My all-time favorite is this Game Boy Advance SP. This one isn't too bad. The last standard color is blue, released on May 21st of 2021, same day as Miitopia. The actual color of the system can be debated forever. It's definitely not purple, but it's also not a straight up blue color. There are two special edition Switch Lites, both being Pokemon. There's the Zacian and Zamazenta edition for Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's a lighter gray with the two box legendaries on the back and blue and red controls on the front. I knew I wasn't gonna like Sword and Shield, so I decided to skip out on buying this when it was released. I'll probably get it if I can find a good price for it, but I'm not a huge fan of the light gray. An even better gray in my opinion is this gunmetal gray on the Dialga and Palkia edition, which is supposed to be based off the limited edition DS, which is pretty cool. You have the two box legendaries on the back in gold and silver, and all the controls are in black. This is the only Switch Lite that has a different texture and paint. The other consoles have a matte finish, but this has a metallic look that makes this my personal favorite Switch Lite. I mean, too bad Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl kinda sucked though. Very recently, Nintendo announced two special edition Switch Lite systems, Isabelle's Aloha Edition and Timmy and Tommy's Aloha Edition. They're literally just the turquoise and coral colors with leaf patterns on the back and the logo on the front. Nintendo probably had a bunch of extra consoles and whipped this up last second for the holiday season of 2023, but it's honestly a really good deal since you get a special edition Switch Lite and a digital copy of Animal Crossing New Horizons for $200. I honestly didn't think we would be getting any other Switch Lite systems, but since we're getting two more in less than a month, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for a red Switch Lite. For years, I believe that the Switch Lite is a well-made handheld that does indeed have a place in the Switch family. I use my turquoise Switch Lite a lot when I first got it, and I take it with me on the go as I have it as my primary Switch, meaning I can play digital games without being connected to the internet. I know, it's a stupid Nintendo thing, and it only really affects you if you own multiple Switch systems, and I really wish this wasn't a thing. The Switch Lite was honestly my favorite way to play Switch games. However, earlier this year, as I was playing Pokemon Scarlet, I discovered that my system got the drift. Famously known as Joy-Con drift, it's when an input registers on one of the joysticks when it shouldn't have. For example, when you're not moving the stick yet your character is walking. I've had it happen to my Joy-Cons, which I sent to Nintendo's repair shop to get them fixed or straight up replaced. Since the joysticks on the Switch Lite use the same components as the Joy-Cons, it was unfortunately bound to happen. I was able to get a new stick that I replaced on my Switch Lite after taking it apart, so it works just fine now. But just because I was willing to do that doesn't mean other people are going to want to fix their systems. And since Nintendo will only fix your Joy-Cons for free, most likely you'll have to pay a fee for Nintendo to fix your Switch Lite if it's not under any kind of warranty. Listen, I'm not rough with my systems, alright? I don't throw them or do stupid shit to them to cause the issue. It just happens over time because Nintendo just kind of messed up on the joysticks. The left stick is actually pretty easy to replace, but the right one is underneath just about all of the boards, so it's a lot harder and longer to replace. But hey, you know, I put a lot of time into my Switch Lite, so the fact that it's lasted for over 3 years, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's also not bad. The Switch Lite was designed to be a dedicated handheld device while still offering the Switch's library of what now consists of arguably being Nintendo's greatest of all time games. A $200 price tag makes this an easy way for people to get into that library. For those who may not be too sure that they will like the console or know for sure that they want a portable exclusive system. I mean, compare this to PlayStation's newly announced PSP. No, not the portable, the Portal. The Switch Lite lets you play games anywhere without an internet connection, lets you use Bluetooth headphones, and does not need a PS5 system. If you're gonna drop $200 on a new gaming device, I mean, I would definitely go with the Switch Lite. However, I would recommend you to purchase at your own risk. Now that I speak from personal experience of a drifty Switch Lite, you should consider the possibility of this issue happening to you. If you know you aren't going to be seriously gaming and only plan on playing for small portions of the day, you should be fine for the long term. But if you know you're going to play hours upon hours of Smash Bros or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it might be best to fork over the extra $100 and get the regular Switch so that you can replace the controller rather than an entire handheld console when drifting occurs. I would also recommend that you just buy a regular Switch or Switch OLED if you have even just the slightest urge to play games on the TV, or know that you like couch co-op, since it would be kinda inconvenient for 8 people to play Smash on that tiny 5-inch display. Be aware that if you are new to the Switch family, you should want to get a micro SD card, a case, and a screen protector. The Switch Lite only has 32 gigabytes of storage, so at least getting a 128 gigabyte micro SD card would be enough to get you started. No need to buy the ones with the Nintendo branding, alright? Those are just stupid expensive. Since you'll most likely be taking the system out of the house, you should probably use a case. While the flip cover is okay, it doesn't hold any games and usually goes for 40 bucks. My personal favorite is this Pikachu and Mewtwo case. It holds games, I can use this flap as a kickstand, and there's enough room to store my Switch Lite with the transparent grip on it. And if you buy any of these cases new, most likely it will come with a screen protector. The optional stuff that you can buy are, you know, games. At first I was gonna say games are a necessity, but you can actually download free-to-play games that don't require Switch Online. But I'm sure if you're buying a Switch Lite, you would want to get those first-party Nintendo games. You need either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, I would say both, but you know, at least get one. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is actually really good on the Switch Lite, and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee actually work the best on handheld mode, since you don't have to use one Joy-Con to throw a Pokeball at the Pokemon. You can just tap the A button to throw a Pokeball. And pretty much any 2D platforming game, I mean, you got a D-pad now. And hey, there are 2 special edition Switch Lite systems coming out that include a full game download of Animal Crossing New Horizons for no extra cost. You probably should consider getting Switch Online if you want to play Mario Kart, Smash Bros, Splatoon, or just about any other Nintendo games online. Most of the older games offered from Switch Online, like Super Mario World, the original Super Mario Bros, Super Mario Bros 3, Super Mario Land 2 even, all feel good to play with that D-pad. If you have any of the standard Switch Lite colors, they all have white thumbsticks, so it's probably a good idea to get thumbstick covers. And finally, I would suggest picking up some sort of grip. It would make the system a lot more comfortable, therefore play for even longer. Honestly, you don't even need to find a system new. You might be able to find a good condition Switch Lite system used at an even better price, or even bundles that will include games and other accessories. If you ask me, you can't go wrong with any of the Switch systems. The Switch is still getting amazing titles both from Nintendo and third party, and there's really no sign of it stopping. Now is still a great time to get a Switch, if not the best time, and if you decide to get yourself a Switch Lite, you surely won't be disappointed. Nintendo is the king of portable gaming, and the Switch Lite is a good example to that statement. Well, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think of the Switch Lite down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and of course, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Okay, like, who's actually going to be buying the PlayStation Portal? I mean, I could just do remote play on my Motorola.